Hello, this is an assessment of a Steinway Model A, 1896, as we can see here.
The piano's just been moved down from Scotland, and it's been put in this house about 2 years ago, and the client's saying that the soundboard's got a crack on it, and just wanting an investigation generally. It's going to move house, and that's the reason, I think, for calling us in at the moment. There's the crack down there as the soundboard, so we'll investigate that. Key tops are in very good condition. There's one there which I think has probably been taken off and put back on again, perhaps a couple of others, but been done pretty professionally. So you can see it's an 85 note piano, as most pianos of this age are, and it has 2 pedals too. Now the casework piano is in good condition. Obviously you can see the fade line there where the lid's been kept open. So it's just faded but in nice condition, very good. It would come out amazing if it was repolished, but obviously if that lid is not kept down like that, then you wouldn't really notice the fading. This music desk here isn't original either. I think it's mahogany and would have been fretted pierced rosewood before. The legs and lyre also, legs would have been elephant legs and lyre turned, so these have been modified, so probably at the same time as the music stand. You can see the original polished colour under here as well on the underside of the lid. Really special veneer, as the Rio rosewood is on these Steinways. It's possible to turn, if it was repolished, to also replace the legs with the originals and the lyre too. Now the tuning pins seem to be, they haven't been knocked in at all, so in good condition. Dirty, of course. We can certainly clean this up without taking the strings off. That's a possibility. There's a bit of rust showing on them too, and the bass strings are pretty dirty, so that needs doing. And there's the badge. If the strings were taken off, then it would show slight cracking on the soundboard. Cracking on the soundboard isn't necessarily an indicator of, it just indicates drying out. It may not have altered the tone. The way you can tell the tone, whether the tone is really altered by drying out, is round here. Especially sounding thin around that area just before the break point. That's B flat above middle C. And they always sound slightly different, one side to the other. And this one harsher there than. That's really rich tone, and that is harsher, but that's normal. Really very typical of this age of piano. Not possible to really correct that without changing the soundboard, which is, it's just not necessary really. It's not that bad. There's the other side of the soundboard. No cracks showing through there at all. So really we might say that there were just very slight splits on the top. There used to be a badge there or something. Don't know what that is. Really not sure. Just rubbed my fingers across it and created those lines. Something glued on. Bit of a mystery that, but not damaging, not affecting the piano at all. Pedal mechanism looks in pretty good condition. And close up here we can see, well, just slight wear. The piano's been restored at some stage, and that's obviously when the legs and the music stand was done. And it's been done well, I think, on the whole. We'll have a look at the inside in a minute. Now the real test as to whether we need to take the strings off and sort the soundboard cracks out, which, as I say, in themselves are just indicators of dryness. We obviously want to keep the piano in a good environment. If it's being moved, it's going to be moved into a similar environment, I think, with a big room, and there's been quite a lot of light coming through that window, but it's a long way away from there. I think this is an ideal environment, especially an old house really, where the piano can be kept, the radiator's been turned off, so that's really important. So a similar environment shouldn't damage the soundboard at all, and I wouldn't say you need to repair that. But the key indicator is whether the tuning pins are loose. If they are, then obviously you then think about either really replacing the strings and tuning pins at the same time. If they're big tuning pins, and these are quite big because it's been restrung, then you might find, I think the next set of tuning pins will be too big. I would tend to replace the rest plank, which is the wood that the tuning pins go into, because you might as well, if you're taking it all apart. It's actually quite costly though to do that, because it takes a long time, and the rest plank then you put a modern laminate one in. So that is a possibility. Now these tuning pins, this is the only one really that's a little bit loose, and it's only a little bit loose. Sorry, it's this one here. It's just very slightly loose, and really I wouldn't say it's that worrying. I put it out of tune a bit now, but I'll put it back in. But it's slightly loose, but generally they're all pretty tight. So for the sake of that, what about the bass string sound? Yes, it would be improved with changing them. Treble as well. Let's quantify the improvement, perhaps 15% improvement. So not a massive improvement, but it would improve. The frame, obviously, if you wanted cosmetic improvement, then you could certainly redo the whole frame, but you've got to redo all the badge as well and get it exactly right. So it's a labour of love. It's a long job, and certainly we do it on our own pianos all the time, but this question here as to what's really required. Now let's look at the hammers. It's normally the hammers that we would work on if we're going to do any work on a piano. The hinges here are not particularly loose. I mean, they're not incredibly tight either. They're not sticky, which is great, because sometimes you get, you can see there if I drop those down, some of them stick. That's extremely common, but this piano has obviously not got that problem. It's actually has some chalk here, I think, put on possibly to encourage it to not dry out. There's chalk here, as you can see. We also chalk underneath the rollers sometimes to make them smoother. In fact, we usually do that on our own pianos. Steinway do it as well, so it's commonly done. There's a bit of dirt on there that's come through, that's something spilled on there, but there's a bit of wear on the back checks here. Yes, it's sort of at the stage where you'd certainly, again, let's quantify a 15-20% improvement by changing the hammers. Top hammers are in good condition, so what I mean there is there's plenty of wear left. That's an indicator. Really, it's not a huge indentation on these. Certainly can tone them, voice them. They do need voicing. They're a bit on the hard side, so perhaps a light reface and revoicing would be the minimum to do, and then if you did want to replace them, you could, and you get perhaps 20% more out of the piano. Quantifying is obviously really difficult. I'm just trying to give a percentage to give some idea of what improvement you would get. I think replacing the rollers is probably worth doing. The thing is that the rollers, as they wear, you get a kind of notchy effect when you play. Really, it's not significant, to be honest with you. That is a decision. Unless you're redoing lots of things, I wouldn't probably redo the rollers. Having said that, the hammer has dropped down because the roller gets a bit worn, so the hammer drops down from regulation. It needs re-regulating then, so that the hammer should stand about there. So if you change the rollers, it automatically goes up to there. So that's a decision to make. And generally, well, the felts on the pianos, those felts are, okay, I'm not quite sure whether there's so many screws in that one. Yes, again, quantifying an improvement if you changed felts generally, 20%, 15%. I don't think as much as that really on those. So the real improvement would be to replace the hammers. They are not too bad. It's just suppressing them to see how much. I think I'd prefer to replace those rather than work on them. You can see with my thumbnails going into the hammer there. That's not the case on a new hammer. You can see it's depressing. So replacing hammers, therefore replacing rollers. And what we do is replace hammers, shanks and rollers, so you get a nice, all the hinges exactly the same. That would be recommended work, improving the tone. The back checks, again, you could replace those. They've got a huge amount of wear. There's such a good felt on these old Steinways, but it could be done. And the key is no sign of moth. Again, as I say, it's all been restored before, and really pretty good. Key dip, really important to get this right so you get a nice touch. And it's on 11, which is exactly where we would set it. A lot of Steinways you find 10.5, which is what Steinways put it at, but nowadays people tend to prefer deeper key dip. Maybe slightly deeper, so there's a slight regulation on the key dip. Yes, it's slightly, some of them are deeper than others, so yes, regulation on the key dip to be done. Sharps, pretty good. They're going down a long way. I don't. Again, very minor regulation on there. There's a ivory that's been taken off, put back on. Pretty well done on the whole. You can't really get rid of that black line. So I think we're concluding here that the most important is the hammers, and here the bass strings. A lovely rich tenor here. Quite a tubby bass where the break point is, so quite a tubby area there. That can definitely be improved. We'll reassess that to be like 25%, 20% improvement of the tone. That's a Steinway Model A, that's 6'3", and it's 1896. Already very nice sounding piano. We looked at some ways of improving it, and certainly tenor's nice, but tubby bass. The soundboard, well, if we restrung the piano, which we could do because of the bass, then you'd repair the cracks in the soundboard. You'd have to change the badge as well. It's quite a long job, and would improve it certainly in the bass area. At treble, well, the other thing, well, hammers. There's definitely needing the hammers doing, I would say. So reassess that to about perhaps 25% improvement on the hammers. So, but already a nice tone. So thank you very much for listening.